You intro it.
Welcome to the Creatures of the Night podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Wendy.
Woo! This is us. I don't know what to say because I was just held at gunpoint and brought into this. But I like ghosts, so maybe that makes me eligible for this podcast, right?
Yep, that's the only qualification, is to be a little bit weird and to like weird stuff like ghosts and all other kinds of things.
Qualified.
Done and done. So, did you get a chance to watch Josh Gates' new show, Expedition X? No, I didn't think so. But you'll be really happy with the first episode because it's all about Mothman.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. So for people that don't know, I guess Josh Gates has like a new show. It's called Expedition X. And it's weird because I don't even know why you call it Josh Gates' show. Because at least in the first episode that I watched, he's not even really in it. He's kind of like the Bosley of the group. There's these two people, and they're actually the ones investigating it. And they're like his Charlie's Angels. You know, that's who Bosley is, right? Did I throw you off with that reference?
Gotcha. You know, when you said that, I was like, this has to be a show that I should know, but...
But that's what I kept thinking, because they're on location investigating, and then they like call him to report what they're doing, and maybe he gives them like a little direction, or he's got the in for them to go and talk to someone else. But he actually wasn't there with them or anything.
Oh.
So the two people actually investigating is Jessica Chobot, if I'm saying her last name right. She is from Nerdist News. That's the only thing I know her from, but she's pretty cool. They call her a paranormal researcher. You know, on Nerdist News, you never knew this about her. She's obviously a nerd. She's all into comic books and all that stuff, but never knew that she was into the paranormal until now. So that's really cool. And then she's with this scientist guy, and his name is Phil Torrance. So they made a good pairing, and the Mothman episode was good.
Were they in Point Pleasant? Like, how does this show play out?
They went to Point Pleasant and interviewed people there, and they investigated some like bunker in the woods, which I've seen other people do too. I think the BuzzFeed Unsolved guys had investigated the same wooded area, but they were like in a boat, right? And then they see like where you can float into like a bunker that's full of water. And Jessica's like, well, both of them, they were like, let's go in there. Where I'm like, no, you do not go in there. You can't see anything. Any kind of alligator could fucking be in there. I don't know that they have alligators in West Virginia, but...
They got Mothman, so they got to have alligators.
So they could have, you know, what is it, Swamp Thing or something in there. Who knows? And they're just like, let's go. And then she got freaked out, which I would too. She was like, I'm scared to put my paddle in the water. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, you should have never went into this thing.
Wow. That's interesting. It sounds more like a bring back to Destination Truth, just sans Josh Gates. So when he makes an appearance, is it like a, hey, I'm Josh Gates, and good luck with this shit, I'm out? I mean, is that kind of how he does it?
It's totally. He's sitting at his desk, and they like Skype call him, and he's like, what's going on? And he's like, well, you know what you need to do. And then he tells them the next step to go or whatever. He's totally their boss, but he's not like there with them. I don't know if in later episodes he will. I only got to see the first one so far. But so they went to Point Pleasant, and they also went to Chicago because I guess there's been recent sightings of Mothman in Chicago, which I had no idea about. But they showed some video of a fucking dragon in the sky, basically. I don't know about Mothman. It looked like a damn dragon. And then some people are like, it's just a big bird. It's whatever, man.
Honestly, I've only read the one John Keel book on Mothman. I don't know if there are others that bring it into Chicago areas or anything like that. So that's news to me. And I know you sent me the thing about the new show, and I saw it on social media. I think I might have even posted it to Twitter. I don't even remember.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
I did. Yeah. It was like shit. But yeah, anything that Josh Gates is like into, I need to see this. So I haven't watched any TV. I watched that one movie, and then that's it. The TV has not been on since.
Right.
Like writing podcasts and finding stuff for our social media. But speaking of social media, I posted a question just a couple weeks ago. The question was, what haunted location do you want to hear about next? Now, nobody seemed to mention Point Pleasant, West Virginia, because that's exactly where I was hoping to go with this. The suggestions that I got are so like mind-blowing to me. Wendy, I've never heard of these places. So here's something to keep an eye on. So I guess we'll have to do some stories in the future. So this one follower on Instagram posted to the question, Turin, the capital of Astorica or Astoria. I'm not really sure. I think she might not be an English speaker. She put at vertex of two triangles triangles of white and black magic with gateway to hell. And I could be wrong. Maybe she was just typing fast. Maybe she was like, oh, I gotta respond to this question. I don't know. But so there's something, anything with gateway to hell in it's got to be good.
Oh, you're going to take that one. It sounds like a bunch of shit I wouldn't be able to pronounce.
I struggled with just her response, but I thought that was awesome. And thank you so much. That was Anna HR 1803 for responding to the question. We got another one too. This one is from a haunted legacy, A_haunted_legacy, who responded with Fiorello Dulce, and that could be Dolce, like, what is that?
Dolce and Gabbana.
Yeah.
Finley and Madonna.
All right, so this one sounds like it's up your alley. So this is Fiorello Dolce Bakery.
Bakery?
I know.
Up my alley. My fat ass.
Nobody else responded to that question. We already got our 2 stories. Thanks. No, but how cool. We post things all the time and we very rarely get solid responses like that. So I appreciate it that our paranormal community are reaching out to us and they're like, yeah, check this place out. It's supposed to be crazy, I guess. I don't know. We'll have to look and see. So
yeah, both sound very intriguing. Haunted bakery?
Yes, I don't know. Fiorello Dolce Bakery. So when I was thinking Dolce like caramel, like
Yeah,
it's supposed to be like better than caramel, I think, but I don't know. Caramel is caramel to me, and that's the fucking bee's knees. I don't know. So we'll have to check them out. But we have to do it before Destination X or whatever the hell they're called gets on board with this so that we can be OG, right?
Yeah, but they look like they're going back. I mean, because they even look like they're exploring stuff that Josh Gates himself has already explored. But they did add these current sightings or whatever in Chicago. That wasn't a part of his story on Mothman before, anything like that.
Or traveling by boat into a bunker. That sounds dangerous. But hey, they're doing it.
You go in there and then somebody's like, hey. It's like, no.
No. And Mothman, by the way, doesn't say things like, hey. So that would be a person that you need to fear.
Oh, they did hear like a screech or something when they were in there, but they said it came from outside. So they were like, let's get back out there and see what it was. And they're in the fucking woods. So, I mean, it's, I'm sure, an animal.
Yeah, creepy.
It was just cool, though, for him to be going back to like those paranormal roots like he did so long before. And he's kind of bringing in some fresh meat. And I think it's cool that he's got the paranormal investigator with the science guy to like reason it out.
You know, Josh Gates, if you need a couple of podcasters to also do the same thing, but from the comfort of their own homes, reach out to creaturesofthenight@paranormal@gmail.com. We can do that show for you.
Should we tell everyone that the only reason we do this podcast is to get Josh Gates' attention?
Or Zach Bagans. You know, we can go either way. And I saw a picture today. I wonder if I took a screenshot of it. It was kind of blurry, and I was thinking about posting it while I was sick and laying on my couch, and I'm like, I talk about Josh Gates and Ghost Adventures all the time, so I can't use this. And then I went on to something else. But it looks like I didn't screenshot it. It was blurry anyways. But it's fucking Zach Bagans and Josh Gates, like, taking a picture together, like a selfie. And I'd never seen that before. I didn't realize they were cool. Clearly, they're both on the Travel Channel. But to me, it's like, it's the mesh of the two worlds that I love. It's that explorer, archaeologist guy who's, you know, out in the elements, digging through the dirt, digging up the bones and digging into the legends. And then there's the other show that's like, fuck all that. Where's the haunted stuff? You know, it's like the best of both worlds right there colliding. And it was such an epic photo. And I was like, can I just get this in large but not blurry? We need to sharpen this shit up. So whoever took this, their camera, I mean, it's an old one. But
send us a copy, though.
I know, signed.
That'd be nice. So you want me to tell you a story?
I do. That's why I'm here. Also, drinking and the side banter. I'm here for it all.
Awesome. Well, for my story, you lucky folks are going to get to see a small peek at how my wandering mind works. So bear with me because this could be all over the place.
Wandering?
Yeah, this is the spiral that I went on, basically. So, in your Kunyin ghost episode, you mentioned that the real exorcist house was for sale and that it sits on Roanoke Drive. So, I started wondering to myself, I wonder if that mystery has ever been solved or a new piece to the puzzle discovered. Like, I know, or thought I knew at least, the legend of Roanoke, but I've not heard like any updates to the story before. I've never looked that hard into it. But before I go any further, don't get excited. I should tell you, no, my story isn't on the lost colony of Roanoke.
I'm crying now.
Oh. This is just the wormhole that started it all.
Okay.
But since there may be some that have never heard the story of the lost colony before, here's a quick summary of it. In 1587, a small colony was founded on an island off the east coast of North Carolina. The settlement would have been the first permanent English colony in the New World, but all the people mysteriously disappeared, so they lost that historical stamp. But no worries, they would still go down as legends in that dark history of America.
Well, I know what really happened to them anyways.
Oh, you do?
Cannibalism. They had to stay alive. I mean, one of those people did anyways, and he packed up with all them golds and moved on.
Very possible. Though they never noted any evidence of like bones or anything left behind either.
No, but there is an archaeological dig that I've seen where they've dug up some like remnants from the Roanoke settlers. I mean, it's interesting. Like you said, there's all kinds of stuff that's out there on it. And if you haven't heard the story before, it's an interesting one. There's a ton of different theories because, as Wendy said, they just disappeared. There's really no proof as to what happened to the colonists after what's-his-face got back on that boat and left.
Right. Well, about that. See, what I found out what happened was the settlement was struggling pretty bad. And they were in need of more supplies. So their mayor, John White, left for England to request resources and more manpower. He returned almost 3 years later, which I always thought that it was only like a few months that he had sailed straight to England, asked them for some shit, came back. No, I completely remembered the story wrong or had misheard it at some point. He got held up in England because of some war that was going on, and that slowed his return. So he comes back after almost 3 years, and when he arrives back in the colony, he found the settlement was fortified but abandoned. His own wife, child, and grandchild just gone.
Yeah.
He then discovered the word Croatoan was carved into trees around the camp, which White interpreted to mean the colonists had relocated to Croatoan Island. But before he could follow up on this lead, rough seas forced him to return to England, which again, this is another thing that I'm like, wait, I thought I had read before he did go to that island and they saw that the people weren't there and then they returned to England. No, he didn't even check this shit out. He was just like, hope all is well. I'm going back to England. Fuck all this.
Was he like, ugh, they went to Croatoan? No, like their hockey team was just not good enough for him. It was like, they can fucking keep it. Going back to England.
I mean, he'd already been gone for 3 years. So maybe he was just like, I mean, the chances of them still being here in the first place was a little fetch. I'd left them with like, not a whole lot of shit.
Like 2 loaves of bread.
Yeah, they were struggling anyway. So he's like, oh, well. So what happened to everybody in Roanoke? At the time of the colony's founding, the Hatteras Native Americans occupied Croatoan Island. So one popular theory supposes that the colonists joined the group of Native Americans to overcome their lack of resources and knowledge of the land to survive. A group called the Croatoan Project has researched and provided archaeological evidence of artifacts and objects found within the Croatoan villages that only English settlers would have owned or made at the time. So they either really did go live there with this tribe, or they could have traded with them for supplies, or the colonists fucking died and the tribe took all their shit when they were not there anymore. Mm-hmm. This guy was gone for 3 years.
Yeah.
Almost anything could have happened.
Yeah. And there's like 1,000 theories out there too.
You can continuously make up stories when there is nothing to go on.
Right.
And there's a 3-year gap of when you last saw these people.
Yeah.
In the New World, I mean, like, they could have moved anywhere.
They could have. Or them alligators might have gotten them.
And he just went back to England. So, I mean, like, he didn't even really, investigate the situation before he went back. And, like, the weirdest thing happened.
Guys.
They're all gone.
They carve into the trees some word I couldn't make out. I don't know what it says. Something about toilet paper, supplies. I don't know. Let's just say Croatoan. And that's it. But nobody's there. They're all gone. So here I am back in England. Everything's good.
Well, yeah. And the settlement wasn't going very well to begin with. So John White was probably like, yeah, I don't want to go back there. Okay.
Yeah.
None of us should. it wasn't really working out. All is lost. I don't know where everybody went. Poof, they were gone. So there really isn't an answer to what happened to them, but it's funny because this made me realize that if you adjust just a few small details to a story, it can make it seem a lot more mysterious than it really is. Like I said, I completely misremembered that they never actually checked out the other island, how long he was actually gone for. So you think if it's just a couple of months and they did investigate and look for them and couldn't find them, then where'd they go?
It's mysterious. Yeah.
But now it's like, oh, actually, he didn't look for them. And he was gone for a really long time.
Right. So, and another thing, I had heard that the settlers and the Native Americans were clashing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it was possible that the Native Americans just got rid of them.
Right.
You know, and I don't know what they did with their bodies or whatever, but, you know, it just, there's another story. There's so much speculation because, like you said, there's 3 years of a time frame here that just went missing. I do remember that he went back home with the boat and they were just like, no, man, you can't go anywhere because of some shit that was going down. And that was very tragic and sad because he had left all of these people there expecting him to come back with surplus and things that they needed to survive. And they kind of had to just make it on their own.
Yeah.
But then to think that he went back and he's like, well, they're gone. Get back on the boat. That's funny too. What the hell, dude?
Right. I mean, because if they died on their own accord or they were murdered, they didn't look even around for like burial plots or anything. I mean, I imagine they did within their own settlement. But if the Native Americans took them off to their area and then kept them and did away with them eventually or whatever, then they didn't even look for those things. Now, you would think with these digs and stuff that they would have found that by now, but maybe they don't care that hard to look in this, you know, what is it, 300, 400, 500-year-old mystery or whatever. I just made up some numbers there. I'm not doing the math, okay? But I mean, maybe everybody's like, this is stupid. They didn't just vanish, you know?
Yeah.
Something happened to them. That's the harsh reality for the new colonists, you know?
Yeah.
The end. That we have to really look this hard to solve this, guys.
It is fascinating because it is historic. It's part of the coming to the new land. And there's this tragedy that nobody bothered to explore at the time. And we're still kind of left with our hands up in the air going, what the hell happened? And they are doing digs. They're trying to figure that out. But I think that they're still trying to figure out on Roanoke, like what happened. And they go to Croatoan or Croatia. It's not Croatia. It's Croatoan. You know, I'm just trying to put the story in some other part of the world. I don't know. It's a fascinating story to me because it's mysterious. There's so many unanswered questions.
I don't know. It started making a lot of sense to me that something just very natural happened to these people. And it didn't seem as mysterious as I had once remembered it. But while looking at that story, I happened to discover another disappearing village. And I want to tell you about that one. This one is a little tougher to reason out, in my opinion. And tell me if you've heard this one, too.
I don't know. There's not too many disappearing villages that I know about, so hit me.
I want to surprise you with this, because it surprised me. Our tale begins on an Arctic evening back in November of 1930. A Canadian fur trapper by the name of Joe LaBelle was seeking shelter from the bitter cold and a warm place to bunker down for the night when he came upon an Inuit village that was nestled on the rocky shores of Canada's Lake Anjikuni, which lies within Nunavut. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, Canada's largest and northernmost territory, and it is one of the most sparsely populated regions on Earth. LaBelle had visited the area before and knew it to be a bustling fishing village full of huts and friendly locals. But when he shouted a greeting, the only sound that returned to him was his own echoes and his snowshoes crunching through the icy frost. LaBelle saw no people, nor barking sled dogs, nor any other sign of life. LaBelle also noticed, with a chill, that not a single chimney had smoke coming out of it.
Bad sign, dude.
Not good. That was when he spied a crackling fire in the distance. Okay, maybe there's hope then. LaBelle, trying his best to remain calm, picks up the pace and headed towards the glowing embers of the dying fire in the distance, eager to find some trace of humanity. When the trapper arrived at the flames, he was not greeted by a friendly face, but by a charred stew that had been left to blacken above the embers.
Oh, that sucks. Nobody wants to eat charred stew.
Probably stunk, too.
Oh, damn.
As he walked to the ghost village, he saw wave-battered kayaks lying on the beaches, and wondered what happened to the inhabitants. LaBelle slowly pulled back the caribou skin flaps of each of the huts, hoping to find telltale signs of what happened. But much to his surprise, what he found only left him more puzzled. He discovered that all the huts were stocked with food, clothing, and weapons, things that people would never have abandoned willingly.
Oh, yeah. They got the fuck out in a hurry.
In one shelter, he found a pot of stewed caribou that had grown moldy and a child's half-mended sealskin coat that lay disregarded on a bunk with a bone needle still embedded in it, as if someone just deserted their efforts mid-stitch.
Wow.
He even inspected the fish storehouse and noticed that the supplies had not been depleted. So it's not like they were starving and moved on.
Well, I mean, if they're brewing up moldy caribou soup, though, I mean, who wants to eat that?
It's like when you burn popcorn and they were like, oh, we just got to get out of here. It stinks.
Yeah, it stinks.
Nowhere were there any signs of a struggle, and LaBelle knew all too well that deserting a perfectly inhabitable community without rifles, food, or parkas would have been utterly unthinkable, no matter what the circumstances might have been, to force the tribe to spontaneously migrate somewhere else. LaBelle then scanned the boundaries of the village in the hopes of seeing what direction the Inuits traveled in. Even though the villagers' exit seemed to have been relatively recent given the fires, he could not find any trace of them. Cold and fatigued as he was, LaBelle was simply too terrified to linger in the vacant village. Yeah, some shit's going on there. I wouldn't stay there either.
Yeah, right. This sounds like an X-File.
He decided to make haste through the sub-zero temperatures to a telegraph office located many miles away and send an emergency message to the closest Royal Canadian Mounted Police barracks. Since then, the story of Angie Lake has been high on the list of legendary Canadian mystery and lore.
Yeah, I bet. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. The earliest recorded publication about Angie Lake is in an article from November 29th, 1930, so I guess just later that month, written by an Emmett Kellier in the Halifax Herald newspaper with the headline, Tribe Lost in Barrens of North, Village of Dead Found by Wandering Trapper, Joe LaBelle. That's an intense title.
Yeah, no shit. That'll grab my attention. I'm going to put that on Twitter. What else you got? You got Mothman there too? Come on.
Kellier was writing as a special correspondent for the paper, and he told LaBelle's story and gave the village a population of 25 and offered a more reserved version of the artifacts LaBelle found, including, he said that there was only one rusty old rifle and a few sled dog carcasses.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. But he said that those were discovered about 300 feet away from the edge of the village. Believed that they were tied to a tree. And according to Canadian pathologists, they believed that the unfortunate canines had died of starvation. Then they were covered by a snowdrift where the one only rusty rifle could possibly be understood as just being forgotten or unwanted. The presence of the deceased dogs is not. These very important animals' existence was essential to villagers' own survival. They wouldn't have just left them behind.
Ooh, yeah, unless they were diseased or something.
Yeah, and then maybe that's why they were kept outside of the village, but maybe that was common too. I wouldn't know.
They'd gone rabid.
It's weird, for sure.
Yeah.
The article included a generic photo of an Inuit village, as there were no photos of this specific location at Angie Lake. And I'm pretty certain Kellier did not actually travel to the area to take his own photo.
Yeah, no. Some
like,
shit's going on there, guys.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think he was just like, Joe, that's a crazy story. I'm going to print that shit up. And then he just found him a photo online. Just joking, there's no online. But you know how people do.
Got him a book. He paid 20 cents. Did you photocopy? What year was this again? The 30s?
Mm-hmm. The 30s. So they have copiers, I think.
I don't know. He had to bring some guy with him with the camera to rig it up. Take a picture of this picture for me.
So there was also a mention in another paper once around the same time of this event that a young boy wandered into the camp of a local tribe that was settled just 150 miles from Lake Angie. But the boy would not speak of where he came from. So just mysterious kid wandering in the woods.
Yeah, that's okay. Creepy.
Also, I probably shouldn't say woods or that those dogs were tied to a tree, because I read something about it being incredibly barren there. Now that I think about it, maybe there aren't trees.
So just wandering alone through this
icy
land.
Tundra. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn.
Where'd he come from?
And he wouldn't speak of where he came from.
Mm-mm. That or the tribe just didn't want to tell the papers.
Yeah, like for secrecy to help this kid. Maybe the kid said it's, really bad. And they're just like, okay, that's okay, kid. You can stay here with us and you don't ever have to go back. It's fine.
Yeah, this is a fairly modern time, so you think, okay, maybe they notified the media because they're like, hey, if anybody's looking for this lost kid, we've got one. But then they're like, wait, why do you have that child? What's going on? They're like, none of your business. Just if, somebody will know if they're missing their kid. I'm not going to give too much information because you don't know really what that kid told them. And it might be, just something that they don't think anybody else will grasp.
That's so funny. That's like when you were in school and there would always be this, if anyone has lost a jacket, come to the office. They don't give too many details because they don't want everyone going they're like, yeah, I need a new jacket.
Yeah, I need a Patagonia coat. Thanks.
Right. You go to the office and they're like, describe it. And you're like,
right.
Sleeves, pockets, zipper. Yeah. Okay. So same situation with the kid, right? They're like, we're keeping this one. He's a worker.
Could be. The article was real mysterious about just like, we don't have any more information and you never heard anything else about it. But it was only 150 miles from this other settlement. So that's interesting.
It is. Yeah.
So the next time you see the story of the Angie Cooney Lake disappearance is on January 17th of 1931. So just a few months later.
That kid ate that other tribe too?
Oh,
boom! That's what happened. I solved it.
That's totally what I thought. That's a vampire child. Don't trust him.
Don't trust him.
Maybe that's why you never got any more information.
No.
What happened to that tribe? No. This is a report from the commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He released the investigation of the event that was undertaken by Sergeant J. Nilsson. Nilsson, in speaking with local traders, learned that Joe LaBelle was, in fact, a real person. But, per these nameless local traders, LaBelle worked only in northern Manitoba, not in their area. However, Nilsson didn't actually go to try to reach out to LaBelle himself and speak with him. Nilsson also wanted to make a big stank about how Kelliher had used a photo that wasn't of this village, that it was actually from one of the RCMPs, which is Royal Canadian Mounted Police. We're going to start using that to just, shorten it. It was from their own archives is where he got the photo of an Inuit village. So he's like, that's not even a photo of Lake Angie Cooney, and LaBelle shouldn't even be up here. So just based on these two events, Nilsson was like, this is a completely sensationalized hoax made up by Kelliher.
Okay.
He didn't actually investigate the location himself. He didn't actually speak to the man who originally gave the story.
He didn't want to.
No, he talked to some traders at Wendy Lake's trading post. That's where he went. And the gossip in town was like, that's bullshit. And so he's like, yeah, bullshit.
Wow.
A lot of these traders had also said they'd never even heard of this deserted village in that location. So it doesn't even exist.
It doesn't exist. Right, exactly. Wow. So write it off. History books, change your notes. Oh, that's just wrong. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Again, it is uncertain, so I don't actually know. But in his reports, Nilsson didn't say anything about speaking to LaBelle. He didn't even try to travel to the lake to investigate it, which you would think, it's only been 2 months. The village has not changed. It could have been so easy for him to go out there just to confirm the existence.
Yeah.
He is no prize-winning detective. He just gave up, and that was it.
I mean, why do you think that is? Was it just really fucking cold out? And he's just like, yeah, no, I can't. I mean, I get it, but he's a detective, right? That's his job.
Yeah, he was either asked to investigate it or he was interested enough to investigate, using air quotes, because he didn't try that hard. And then he's just like, no, that's fictional. You stop it. And that's the stance that from then on, the RCMP wanted to take, is it's all just a lie. For the next 28 years, the story goes cold. Until 1959, when Frank Edwards mentioned the Angie Cooney Lake disappearance in his book, Stranger Than Science, in which Edwards retells Joe LaBelle's experience, slightly increasing the number of Inuits from 25 to 30. Guess he just likes that number better. And claimed that the mounted police had returned to the village with Joe LaBelle and confirmed everything that he told them. And like LaBelle, they were unable to find any trace of villagers nor come up with a suggestion why they might have left their valuables and necessities behind.
Yeah.
Edwards concluded his chapter on the subject with, months of investigation failed to produce a single trace of any member who had lived in the deserted village of Angie. The mounted police filed it as unsolved, and so it remains.
Dude, I mean, that's bananas. They're like, we don't need to go and investigate it because it's been labeled unsolved. Duh. That's it. Done. Case closed. Unsolved. Move on.
The end.
That's crazy.
So in 1976, you see the story pop up in the news again when Dwight... Oh, it's on my next page.
I love him. From The Office?
Yes.
It's my favorite. False.
That's what the Royal Mounted Police were doing. So, anyways, no, it's Dwight Whalen. He wrote a cover story for Fate magazine called Vanished Village Revisited. Whalen wrote that when he called the RCMP personally, he was told that they had no record of any such event, despite the many details in Sergeant Nielsen's actual existing report. It does exist, guys. And it was provided by the RCMP commissioner himself. This document truly exists, per the podcasters that I listened to. They said they saw it. I didn't see it myself. But still, the RCMP was like, we don't know what you're talking about. None of that actually happened.
Wow. They denied everything.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
They don't want to investigate. They don't want to do their job. So I have a quick question. Did you say that this magazine was called Fate magazine?
Yes. FATE.
The fuck? Where is this being published? I mean, all these years I've been reading Teeny Bop, but I need Fate magazine. This is good shit.
You do, because they were all over it, and you're going to be so excited about what I'm going to tell you next. But before that, also in this article, Whalen noted that there were actually two separate investigations that he was told about that the RCMP did. First, the Nielsen one, and then also they went back up there to investigate later in 1931, and the Mounties admitted to discovering an uninhabited settlement, but they deemed it as either a seasonal or permanent abandonment of the site with no mysterious overtones and declared the case closed. So they told him that, and he published that in his story.
Yep.
Still, with these official reports, Whalen concluded his article with that the whole story was largely invented by Emmett Keller, possibly based on a tall tale that he had heard from Joe LaBelle, who may or may have not have stumbled upon actual ruins of a village or camp. He still called it bullshit. He's like, I know they lied to me and everything and had to bust them out on it, but yeah, I think it's still a tall tale. But things got kind of weird when in the April 1977 edition of Fate magazine, a reader wrote in to dispute Whalen's conclusion. This reader was none other than Betty Hill. Yeah, Betty Hill.
Stop it. She did not. Are you kidding me?
She did. She was
What year was this?
This was 1977.
Oh, shit.
So for those of you who have lived in a cave, Betty Hill at that time was the most famous self-described alien abductee in the world. Betty claimed that while on a ferry ride with her husband Barney at the Bay of Fundy, they met a Captain Larson who, as a Mountie, had spent 9 years investigating the mystery of the vanishing village of Angie Lake. In his opinion, wrote Betty, the villagers had been abducted by UFOs. Of course.
I'm sold.
She said it. So
it must be true.
Must be. And every single UFO writer out there thought, fuck yeah. It's got the stamp of approval from Betty Hill now. So they started including it in all their books. In the 1983 book, The World's Greatest UFO Mysteries by Nigel Blundell and Roger Bohr, like the animal, not like he's a boar, but they retold the story of Joe LaBelle, but they amplified the population of the village to 1,200 people.
That's a bit of embellishment there.
They also add the element of 3 trappers seeing UFOs flying towards Angie shortly before the disappearance was reported.
Where did they get their info?
That is not mentioned. They did not cite their sources, I believe. Yes. They just ran with this.
Aha, I see.
They state that apparently these trappers reported the incident to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police as they were on their way, the mounted police, to Anjikuni to investigate the claims by LaBelle. They had crossed paths, stopped at like a campfire together for the night. And they were telling the police that they spied a bizarre gleaming object soaring across the sky that seemed to change shape before their eyes, transforming from a cylinder into a bullet-like object.
Swamp gas. Clearly.
Clearly. Come on, guys. This book also added to the story that the Mounties, once arriving to the vacant village, discovered on the outskirts of the community open graves. If some of the more outrageous statements are to be believed, every single tomb had been opened and, even more puzzling, emptied as well.
Wow.
Now, there are less dramatic accounts that say that there was only one tomb that was opened and emptied. But either way, odd. And possibly fictitious.
Quite possibly bullshit. Just FYI.
Now,
wow.
Just so we rule this out, if it was a true story, there's pretty much no way that it could have been an animal. The ground is fucking frozen, guys. Hard as a rock. You're not getting through it, especially this time of year. So there's that. And then there were also the reports that the marker stones had been stacked into two neat piles on either side of the graves. So again,
what?
If it did in fact happen, it was not by animals.
Or it was an animal that was extremely intelligent and into architecture, because now this fucking cow is stacking shit with his hooves.
I'm like, octopuses could do that. And it's near a lake and they can be on land for a while.
There we go. Wow. But digging would be tough for an octopus and a cow. I mean, you can't get far. The ground is frozen solid, right, at this point in time?
Yeah.
That's weird, dude. Really, really weird. I'm going with cave gremlins, by the way, on this story.
Ice cave gremlins.
Yes. Cave gremlins, yes, for sure.
And if all that wasn't strange enough, the officers, per this book, also reported odd bluish lights pulsating on the horizon above the village. Because what alien story would not be complete without odd lights?
Odd lights, but blue lights. I mean,
yeah.
That ties to so many different hauntings that we've seen.
Oh, that is so true.
That is so weird that they said pulsating blue lights. So, I don't know. That's a weird one.
That's a good point. I had not thought about that. If they had died for some other reason, or these tombs opened up, now again, the stories could be bullshit, but the whole blue orb thing and blue mist and stuff, we've encountered that a lot. And I bet they weren't even trying to go in that direction. We just solved it.
Done.
That octopus and cow killed everyone.
They should have wrote to us. That octopus and cow killed everyone.
So again, per this book, after 2 weeks of investigating the Mounties, based on some berries they found...
Opium.
No. Based on some berries they found in one of the cooking pots, they came to the conclusion that the villagers had been gone for at least 2 months.
Oh.
Then, in 1988, the Australian skeptics contacted the RCMP historian, S.W. Horrell, who wrote, many years ago, the members of RCMP, then retired, would have served in the area at the time these events were reported to have happened, were asked for comments on the story. They could not confirm it, recall nothing like it, and were astonished that such a ridiculous tale would be believed. Our files were carefully searched. No such crafts had been reported. No one named Joe LaBelle ever came to the RCMP in a panic about Lake Anjikuni, and the RCMP did not send out any search party. The only records we have of the story, per this historian, were the copies of letters responding to people asking them to comment on the story, and they would reply back and say it was entirely fictitious. Again, I repeat to you that skeptic reporters, not just crazy paranormal loving freaks like myself, skeptic reporters have been able to find documented evidence of Nielsen's report. an RCMP officer. Though the second report, I did not really necessarily see anybody say that they saw a document on that. When the Mounties actually confirmed, there was a village there, but it didn't look suspicious to them. I didn't see any physical proof out there of that necessarily, other than that mention of it in that Fate article, which he was completely against the story. So why would he lie about it? So again, why is the RCMP so adamant that they've never investigated the story?
Right.
Now, there's no doubt that some have taken the story and fucking ran a marathon with it and added all kinds of crazy elements to it that are very possibly fictional facts.
Oh, yeah. They went conspiracy theory deep, right?
Yeah. UFO, all kinds of things can happen. Empty graves, all this stuff.
Body snatchers.
In the tundra. Like, who the fuck wants to dig that hole? No.
It's already a frozen body, though. I mean, got to think about it. It's well preserved that way.
Have a point there, for sure.
I am not a body snatcher in making. Just saying.
Just giving advice to those who are.
Just think about it, guys.
However, if you go back to where this all began, Joe LaBelle's story, you could still look at it and it could raise some red flags here and there with the things that he said. First of all, the major one is the low burning embers he noted seeing. If the dogs have been dead for 2 months and the presence of food blackened and moldy, how are these fires still burning? Who started them?
Gremlins.
They started it and ran off. Another odd comment would be about the kayaks. In November, average temperatures are, the way that they worded it was 13 degrees Celsius below freezing.
Yep.
So is it negative 13 is what they're trying to say, or is it below 30 degrees Celsius?
Below 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So I think they're trying to translate it for you. It was 13 degrees Celsius, which is below freezing.
It was fucking cold.
I think.
Even if it's 13 degrees Celsius, it's like 8 degrees in Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
But it's cold is the idea. It's November. So that lake should have been frozen over. So why does he say wave-battered kayaks pulled up to the beach? Why would they leave their kayaks there in the first place? And then how are they wave battered? Now, if you think about how they might have been gone for 2 months, then maybe it was before the lake froze over and they were left there.
Okay, I see what you're saying. But then how would the embers still be burning at that same time?
Exactly. That brings you back to the embers.
It could just all be in the way it was translated. Now, he come upon the beach and nobody's there. Everybody's gone. It's desolate. He sees the kayaks pulled up on the beach and they've been beaten. They've been used, but it's fucking cold as shit. So he's not specifically saying that they're out there in the water beating against each other because they're still strapped to a post in the water. He's just saying that they've been used, but they're sitting there. They're not new and they're not in the water, but they're pulled up. So somebody could easily get in them and use them even though the lake is frozen over.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking of that.
It also could just be a writer adding descriptive words. I mean, LaBelle might have just said their kayaks were by the beach. And so to make the story more poetic, Keller added wave-battered kayaks, left desolate. A lot of this could have just been changed because it's the writer's preference to make it seem more dramatic.
That's very true. Yes.
Except for the fire thing.
Yeah. I mean, if the fire's going, clearly he couldn't have made that up. I mean, unless, okay, what were the words again of the fire? He saw it, like you have to go all the way back to the beginning of your story. Did he see it as he was like walking, or like he made it into a hut and then there was this fire? Like, how did he describe it from the very first point?
He saw a fire that wasn't in a hut, like a communal fire pit in the middle or something. But he saw it from a distance as he first arrived. He, shows up and he's like, hey guys, I'm here. Because you don't ever just want to stomp into somebody's area or camp or whatever. Yeah. So he's like, hey, I'm here. Nobody responds back. And he's kind of panning and looking like, where the fuck is everybody? And actually, there's no smoke coming from any of their huts. And oh shit, though, there I see a little fire burning. There's got to be somebody there. So he makes his way over to this outside communal fire and nobody is there.
I was just making sure that, again, it wasn't like writer embellishment, that it wasn't just like he got to the fire and the last bit of the embers were burning away. But he clearly saw that there was some life, and that's where he headed towards, thinking that there was some life.
I would think that it has to be a part of his original story because it drew him to that fire pit. It's what made him still think, okay, there could be somebody here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the alien spaceships came and they zapped the dogs because they thought they were a threat. Pew, 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 pew. They're dead. That's why they're just bones laying out there. People got all fucking freaked out. They hid in their huts for a couple of days. They realized they couldn't make it, so they went out on foot. And then, like, 5 hours later, dude shows up.
Okay, that's interesting. The other little issues with his story is that he says that it was a permanent settlement that he had visited multiple times throughout the years. And the mounted police, which we know not to really trust them, but they said that there's no way there was a village with such a large population that would exist in such a remote area of the Northwest Territory.
Yeah, I don't buy their story. But, I mean, his is a little far-fetched, too. I mean, look, we have shows like Alaskan Bush People, and clearly we're not talking about Alaska, but people live in remote areas. Why? So they can do their own fucking thing. And there would be communals of these sort of people living together because, you know, one guy's going to be better at building houses while this other guy's going to be better at fixing your fucking computer. So you all get together and you work together in these little communities. So it makes sense to me that he would find something like that. But why would the mounted police totally go against, you know, and say, no, that shit doesn't exist?
Especially when they claim they never even went up there to go check it out.
Yeah, right.
So they're like, there's nobody up there. Have you been up there? No.
No.
Then how do you know?
I just know. It's like a kid.
So, also, people like to point out that LaBelle had said that he had seen a sealskin garment. However, in this area, it's caribou that they would have been hunting, not seal. But I believe that that's just silly to kind of point out. They could have collected that garment while they were settled somewhere else where that was a popular source, or they could have traded it with someone.
No, that's highly possible.
So possible. But something a little harder to wrap your head around is that Joe LaBelle's story says he used a telegraph to report the vanished village.
Beep, 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 beep. Yeah, okay.
But during this time, the closest telegraph office was probably 600 miles away.
And he got there on foot?
They never really said whether he had some kind of animal with him, but I think on foot.
Yeah, by telegraph, though. He said that?
In the story that Keller told was that that's how he reported the case, is that he went to a telegraph office and told them about it. But maybe Keller added that. Maybe it took him many days to get to this telegraph office, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody said that the next day he was in a telegraph office reporting it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm thinking this guy ate some of them berries he found on them bushes. and he fucking
the whole thing.
He allegedly telegraphed it, too.
So there's some misreporting and there's some odd comments about the story. It could have been the authors involved retelling Joe LaBelle's story. It could have been Joe LaBelle making the entire thing up. Other than the mysterious burning embers and the fact that the RCMP refuses to admit the village even existed there, those other small little disputes really aren't enough to necessarily say the whole thing's a lie, but there aren't really any witnesses to it either except for Joe LaBelle. So if we believe his story, what the hell happened to Anjikuni Lake Village? It's difficult to imagine what sort of force would compel a seasoned tribe of Inuits to leave the safety of their home without taking their tools, food, weapons, and dogs necessary for their survival in the harsh climate of the tundra.
Yeah.
The fact that there were no sign of struggle and no indication of violence only adds to the already eerie mystery.
Yeah, usually that means, according to forensics files, that they went willingly.
Yes, or suddenly.
They were taken. Oh, that too. Right.
So basically, if we can't find any logical explanation, we are forced to start looking outside the box and into the paranormal box.
I'm not usually forced.
We were already there. We've already said this. So it's nothing new what I'm about to tell you. But of course, the most popular theory is that the villagers had been victim to a mass alien abduction, which would allow an alien race to study an entire people, that they just took all of them. On one hand, this would explain how every living soul of the village managed to evaporate without a trace, apparently while still engaged in daily chores, and then they didn't leave even so much of a footprint in the snow.
Yeah. Man, that's gotta suck, dude. Like, just think, it's been a long ass day. You've been doing laundry on the cauldron, and then you've got to make dinner. You had to, what do you do to a caribou? I don't even fucking know. You got to skin it, and then you got to cook it, and then, I don't know, make it taste good with some seasons that you had to pilfer. I mean, this is a long ass day. All you want to do is sit down by the fire and drink whatever it is that you can find, right? To soothe. And then the aliens come, they're like, nah, bitch, you're mine.
So that they can poke and prod at you. And it's just like, oh, could this day get any worse?
Exactly.
So if you are one that has a hard time blaming everything on aliens, that's not us.
That's not me.
But if you are one of those, then I have a more disturbing hypothesis for you, if you'd like.
Oh, I do.
It is believed that the Anjikuni people might have fell prey to the Tornrik, and I am butchering that, I'm certain. And there are multiple spellings of it, apparently. So you can go a lot of different ways with it. But this is a demonic entity who, according to the Inuit legend, is a powerful sky deity who is the leader of the Legion of Evil Spirits. Said to be invisible to all but Inuit shaman, who were known to recite incantations and make animal sacrifices in order to keep this so-called great devil at bay. This maleficent being was said to occasionally appear in animal form, such as a bear. LaBelle himself told reporters of the Anjikuni people's belief in such a being and that he feared that is what had taken them. It's worth pointing out that LaBelle, a supposed stranger to the region per those trade store owners, was apparently familiar enough with the indigenous people and their customs to mention one of their most feared entities by name. But the lack of blood and any other signs of struggle at the scene of the crime would seem to counter this suggestion. So it's something they feared, and the whole animal sacrifice thing with the dogs, curious. But again, it's not like carnage was left behind, and it sounds like this evil thing was really supposed to tear into people if it was mad.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I'm going to have to look into that one. That's interesting.
But how you said that they willingly left.
Yeah.
Is it something that could have scared them off in a rush?
I mean, but with no footsteps or footprints left behind either. I mean, it seems like it should have been something that was visible. Again, we don't really know what this guy saw and didn't see because his claims are sporadic. He's kind of given you the details and then you're hearing them again after a writer took a hold of them and made them, you know, more imaginative, right? So maybe he did see footprints and the writer was like, nah, we're going to leave that out.
There's also, if there's snowfall coming down, is that going to hide tracks? I mean, these people know how to track things. So he should know how this is done. And if fresh snow just fallen, whether that's something to take into account and tell people, well, I looked, but of course I wouldn't see it because we had a blizzard the night before, blah, blah, blah. You know, did they leave that out of the story to make it more juicy or what? I mean, it's just something that he brought up, that they believed in this deity and they feared it. And it was basically the only enemy that they had. So when you try to look at, well, who's the suspects? Joe LaBelle was like, well, there was this thing, I guess.
Yeah. The Legion of Evil Spirits. I mean, they had that going for them. So, damn, dude, that's insane. It could be aliens or
a demon. Always. Isn't it always them?
It is with us. I mean, it's either one or the other. And honestly, I'm liking either opportunity here. Either one of them makes a juicy story for me.
Well, I've got one more for you. So if they weren't dealing with aliens or forest demons or modern vampires, I just kind of threw that one in there because I love vampires and that little kid, you know, that's creepy.
Yeah.
But nobody else brings that up, just me. But if none of them were responsible for taking this village, then we must consider the possibility that they simply slipped into a time warp. I did not know this, but there are historical records of people who just mysteriously disappear right in front of people.
What?
So there's this strange case of Orion Williamson, a farmer from Selma, Alabama, who was said to have vanished in thin air in front of his own wife, son, and 2 neighbors while strolling across his property in July of 1854. Now, you look like you know this story.
Yeah, I think I've seen this on Expedition Unknown.
Yeah.
The story. Yeah.
I'm surprised that the Angie Lake hasn't been on there.
Yeah.
But maybe he thinks it's total bullshit. That's why.
I think that the problem is the reason why, and I fucking love this story, by the way, but I think that the reason why it hasn't been is because there's so many twists and turns that there's no real let's go with this direction, because there's like, there's this direction. There's this direction. Well, there's also this direction. And then if you sit and think about it long enough, you could be like Wendy and be like, what about the fucking kid? I mean, there's another direction there. There's so many twists and turns.
Absolutely.
TV shows don't like that. They want to be like, okay, let's focus on this path and we'll do that.
Yeah. So they can dig into that one theory and prove it otherwise or not.
Right.
So with this, Orion Williamson, the farmer that just disappeared right in front of people, an entire community turned out to search for him with no avail. But Williamson's son swore he heard the ghostly cries of his father emanating from the field for weeks following his bizarre evaporation. Then there's another astonishing case of a shoemaker from Warwickshire, England, by the name of James Warson. Warson, while jogging ahead of his mates in a long-distance race, he tripped just like 20 feet in front of them. His mates watched as their friend fell forward with an awful cry of terror and then poof, vanished before he could hit the ground. Now, I read mixed reports on both of these accounts on whether the individuals reappeared later on or not. Some say they never came back, just like the Angie people, just gone forever. And other stories of the tales said that the farmer reappeared weeks later, coming out of the woods, where his son was hearing him. And then another story I found on the jogger said that he, moments later, kind of popped back into existence. But like I said, you saw different accounts of the stories, so I don't really know which ones to believe. And I didn't dig that deep into them. I just had never heard about this people disappearing right in front of other people's faces.
Well, you just sent me on a downward spiral, because that's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life is dig into this shit. This is a fucking amazing.
So, though this is amazing to hear, these were still single-person events, not an entire village. So, it is not my favorite theory to what happened to the Angie people.
I think I like it the most.
I think I'm with the aliens or vampires. No, vampires would make a mess. It's the aliens.
Vampire, there would still be a body laying around. These would have to be like body snatchers. And vampires aren't usually into that. They're into like, I got my fill. Okay, I'm good. I either turn you into a vampire or now you're dead. Sorry about that.
I think that with time, they could wipe out a whole village. But yes, their bodies would still left behind and they would not go after the dead.
No.
Per interview with the vampire, you're not supposed to eat them.
Clearly. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right. Could make you sick.
Yeah.
It's a grody.
No, it's grody. Oh, okay. So then the body snatcher idea, instead of it being a vampire, it could be that, but you would still see footprints, I think. You would still see some trace of that disappearance. Not just poof, it's gone.
Right.
You would see like where they had escaped to. Little tiny footprints or something,
Yeah. So, another theory that some people like to throw out there is mass suicide, that they just simply walked into the lake and killed themselves. But, why would they do that? And don't you think at some point you would see some evidence of that?
Yeah, eventually, I mean, come on. Whenever the fucking body of water unfreezes, you would see something. Bodies don't just sink to the bottom and stay there,
Yeah.
It's not how we work. We float, generally. We would all have to have been weighted down at the bottom of that lake, which means somebody weighted everybody down. No, I don't agree with that either.
No. So, despite the many attempts to explain or debunk this story worldwide, this mystery still remains unsolved. And while we may never find out whether or not these poor souls were murdered, transported to another world, or simply slipped into a different dimension, the fact is that today no physical evidence exists of a village at Angie Lake. And no published accounts of anyone going up there and clearing away the remnants of a village. So, I mean, like we've said, is the story even real?
Right. I mean, were there birth records of any of these people? Did they have any names? They don't have...
They wouldn't, though, being an Inuit
what happened with
village.
The kid?
No.
True.
I mean, this is a tribe. They're living on their own. There's no record of them. And then they wouldn't have made record if anybody came around and salvaged their huts and whatnot and their equipment. And we already proved the police, they're not going up there. They didn't even go check it out. So nobody's got any facts on this, just Joe LaBelle's account of it and how strongly he insisted that it was true and it was something that he experienced. You know, you take one person's word for it or you call him crazy.
Yeah. Well, he could have been trying to do the right thing. Okay, this dude shows up. He's lost. He's fucking freezing. He needs somewhere to stay and he needs some food and some booze or whatever. Who knows? He rolls up into this village. He's got a bad temper. He just slays them all. He murders them, right? He takes their food, their warm huts, their fire, whatever. And he's like, shit, I didn't really mean to do all that. Now I'm going to be, I'm going to be in some trouble. Let me make up a story. And in the meantime, let me clear all these dead bodies out of here too and get rid of this evidence. I got an idea. Boom, aliens. This is what happens. Now I'm going to go all the way to this telegraph that's like 900 miles away, whatever, 600 miles away. And I'm going to tell him the story. Meanwhile, like all this shit happened like months ago, right?
Right.
He gets up there to the telegraph. He's like, beep, 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 beep. Hey guys, some shit is going on. I mean, you won't believe it. People are gone. I just rolled up here. Fucking dogs are dead, but there's embers burning. Like, he just made all this shit up to cover up what he did, which was cannibalize the entire tribe.
Yeah, I cannot remember any of the details, but there was a lore story of they were living very remotely, a family, and they got snowed in like for a very long period of time. And then like the dad, husband, whatever, comes down from the mountain after everything thaws out, fat as fuck. And he's like, my family died. We were all starving. And they're like, you look quite healthy.
Yeah,
and
right?
He, like later admitted or something that they did. I think they went up there and they saw that the bodies had been like gnawed on or something. And they were like, that's not. I think they had to dig them up too. Like he had buried them already.
That wasn't the guy that had survived the Donner Party?
No, it wasn't that.
It was something else?
It was
my God.
Something else.
How do you do that, man? How do you, like...
His own family.
Yeah, right. Okay, so look, this other guy, and here I was giving him, because I was like, okay, he's a little cold and hungry. He's like, fuck these people. They're not my family. But that dude, that motherfucker was like, whatever, y'all gotta go.
It's survival of the fittest, motherfucker. I can find another family.
Find another family.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, if I'm misremembering that, then people, correct me. Or we can just run with it and make up our own stories. That's what everybody seems to be doing. But I was very intrigued by this story. I really want to know if it was real or not. I think it is a mystery. I think you can't stamp it as it didn't happen because not enough people actively, physically went and investigated his story. And if he is an honest person, because it's not like he really made money off of this. He told it to one newspaper. Was that like enough for him to get his booze for the night and he didn't care after that? He was like, I just told them some wild ass shit. Like from then on, where did Joe LaBelle go? You would have thought he would have milked it a bit more.
I mean, it depends. If he had anything to do with it, then maybe he's like, X-nay on the whole tribe missing A.
There is that, but you would think that he would go to the mounted police and say, this is what happened to cover himself, not to go to the newspaper and let them tell stories that might intrigue other people to go up there and investigate it.
Right. Fire in the sky type.
I mean, he wouldn't draw attention to it to where they maybe could go there and see gnawed on bodies and stuff. But yeah, he did make it wild enough and then bring up this demon entity as well to be like, in case y'all find any carnage, it's that thing's fault, not mine.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I don't know what really happened. I'd love to know for sure. So if there are people out there who've heard this story before or know anything about it, then please write to us at creaturesofthenightparanormal@gmail.com, or you can comment or direct message on any of our social medias, which are COTN_paranormal on Instagram and COTN paranormal on Facebook and Twitter. I also want to thank writers Brian Dunning and Rob Murphy for their information that I collected. Both of these, one was kind of like loves mystery and is all into it, and then Brian is like a skeptic. So it was cool to get the two sides of their stories and mish them together. And I found a new podcast that I'm so excited to tell you about because it was good. And they did this story. It is called Not Alone Podcast. When you have a free moment, you should try to check it out. They were really cool guys. Their names are Sam Fredrickson and Jason Moiltoso. I butchered that, I'm certain. But thanks to all of those people because you're the reason I have this podcast. So, thanks. And thanks to everybody else for listening.
Wow. Well, I have got to tell you that I knew nothing of Tornrak, the deity, or the Legion of Evil Spirits. I know who I'm going to be praying to from now on. I got some shit I got to take care of around here, too. Just saying. Oh, my goodness. And if I can still subscribe to Fate magazine, is that still being published? Because I got to get my hands on this shit.
I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Maybe a birthday present for you.
Damn. I mean, this whole story blew my mind. First of all, you start with Mothman and how he's now being spotted in Chicago. And I'm like, danger, Chicago people. I hope you guys are queuing into that shit. And then you turn right around with some alien abduction shit and Betty Hill's even involved. I mean, I just can't get enough. This whole story is my life's work and I didn't even do it. But I found in this podcast something new to obsess about. So thank you.
I know we say this a lot, that we're worried that we're doing each other's stories. And we've kind of stopped recently texting each other about that. And I thought, oh, she must think that whatever she's doing is so obscure that I would never cover it. But this is your wheelhouse. This is like what you would find. This is where you would go. And so after working on this very last minute, as always, I was like, I pray to the gods she is not doing this story, because I would just have nothing else for you.
You know, I've stopped worrying about it. It was a huge fear of mine in the earlier days of our podcasting. And I mean, every now and then that thought still creeps into my mind, but there's just so many stories out there that I really don't think we're ever going to do the same story the same night that we podcast. I just don't think that it's ever going to come into play unless we're just so fucking in sync with each other. Right. And fucking aliens have just been like, zap Chris's head, zap Wendy's head, and they got us. If that's the case, then we're going to be up in a spaceship anyways, getting fucking tormented and experimented on, and we won't be podcasting. You guys will never hear from us again. But no, I 100% loved it. Like I said, I'm not lying when I'm telling you that I'm obsessing over this story, because I 100% cannot wait to dig into this deeper, which I hope that you like the story too, because you're probably going to hear nothing else from me but this fucking shit for the rest of your life. So when we meet up, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, Tarnarak, I got some more shit for you on that deity. Hold the phone. Look at this charm I got.
It just went so many places because, like you said, there's just so many possibilities to what happened to these people, just like the Roanoke colony. I mean, like, we could make up 100,000 stories of what got them or what happened. It could send you on a spiral, but it led to things I'd never heard of before. This deity, this time warp. Yeah, I hear people talk about time warp all the time. I never knew it was actually happening to people right in front of other people's faces. What are you talking about?
I thought that was legit sci-fi only.
Yeah, or just an idea. Oh, this person disappeared. I bet they entered the time warp. Not, I physically saw it happen. Like, bye, Dad, he's gone. I mean, that's some time traveler's wife shit right there.
Right.
It was crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. The whole thing was fucking crazy. And even the mention of the blue lights, again, that just takes me back to the haunted element of things that we have seen from here and there, and places that are like Bobby Mackey's. And I mean, places that are legit frightening haunted places. And there you go, blue lights. I mean, what does it all mean? It's like double rainbows. Yeah, I know that's a meme, but still, it's something that you have no explanation for.
Yeah.
It's otherworldly.
You know, when you bring that up, too, that enters in another theory, possibly. You know, how long had it been since Joe LaBelle had been there? Maybe they did die. Maybe something drew them away from the camp and they died. Nobody went looking for these people. So just because nothing seemed to happen in the village doesn't mean it didn't happen, you know, 100 miles from the village in a remote area that nobody just thought to go look at. So what if something happened to them and these burning fires and stuff are all ghostly activity? You know, we have stories all the time where they're throwing books and they're opening doors and they can make these physical movements. So maybe they can start fires, low burning fires over nasty burnt stew. So they can't actually eat it.
Wow. I don't know, but I'm going to be staying up all night long researching more. It's fascinating. I 100% love it. So thank you for digging that up for us.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was, definitely something cool to explore. And so I hope, again, that everybody else liked it. And just please remember to help support the show by leaving a review. That's all we ask. If you'll let us know how we're doing. Yeah, don't write a review on how we're doing. Just tell us about your day.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
How we're doing. That's what I meant to say. And if you want to be like a super supporter, man, then you can visit our shop, The Spirit Emporium. It is on Etsy and our website, creaturesofthenightparanormal.com. And you can buy spiritual products, our cool ass podcast tees. And then you can follow the social media for The Spirit Emporium as well under that name, The Spirit Emporium. So that's it.
Yeah. Nothing so far to protect you from a Tornarak. However.
No, or aliens. So,
No, there's nothing. I mean, you just make your own tinfoil hats and just hope for the best.
I mean, we can start selling them in the shop if you want, but I think most people will be like, yeah, I could make that myself. So
I don't know. Maybe they just don't have the time. And I'm a master folder, as you know, with my present.
That is true. That is true. Look for that on our shop, guys. Tinfoil hats. We should put it up there just as a joke.
Just do it. I think we should.
Etsy's not going to stop you from that shit.
Right? That's so true. Then we're doing it.
All right. Okay, that's it, guys. Bye.
Bye.